Heartwarming twist, this veteran's incredible life changed when he exposed his wife's boyfriend. The sun dipped low in Maplewood, casting a golden hue over the quiet streets. Greg, a 34-year-old veteran recently returned from military service, stood next to his trusty toolbox at the local garage, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. The sound of a revving engine echoed around him, a familiar song that sang of diligence and determination. Yet, under his thick work shirt lay a heart heavy with unfulfilled dreams. He glanced towards home, picturing his wife, Emily, and their exuberant 6-year-old daughter, Lily, laughing together in the backyard. He was their rock, spending days fixing cars and nights worrying about bills, a burden that pressed down like the rusty hood of a broken-down truck. As he cranked a stubborn engine, Greg remembered those simple joys: Emily's laughter, Lily's bright eyes sparkling with excitement at every little thing. His world was spun tight around them, but instead of peace, anxiety gnawed at him. The weight of financial stress felt like a brick on his chest. He never voiced his dreams for a kinder life, always focused on providing, on sacrifice. Yet every time he laid eyes on Emily, doubts flickered through him. Was he enough? Everything shattered one fateful night when curiosity led him to Emily's phone. The message, bold and undeniable, split his heart in two. "Jake can give us the life we deserve," it read. The charismatic businessman who sold expensive cars, everything Greg was not. The bile rose in Greg's throat, and anger clenched around his insides like a vice. How could she? Once filled with love, their home now echoed with silence and tension. The light laughter that filled the walls faded into whispers of hurt. As the townspeople caught wind of the betrayal, gossip swirled like leaves in a storm. Yet amid the chatter, kindness came pouring in. Neighbors brought food, held Lily's tiny hand, and offered Greg shoulders to lean on. Never did they avoid the truth, but their compassion reminded him of the community's embrace. Still, every moment was tainted by resentment. He felt like a ghost among the living. What was left of his identity? A husband betrayed, a father struggling. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Gathering courage like packing a survival kit, Greg finally confronted Emily. The conversation spiraled like a whirlwind, tears flowed, words cut deep. They peeled back the layers of their marriage, revealing raw wounds of neglect and dreams buried under everyday survival. Trust cracked under the pressure of honesty, but could they rebuild? As the dust settled, a flicker caught in Greg's heart. Whispers surrounded him, not just of pity, but of admiration for his skills as a mechanic. Neighbors spoke of starting a fundraiser, a community-driven initiative turning his talent into a chance to thrive. Now faced with a choice, the stakes echoed louder. Could Greg break free from betrayal's grip? Would he risk everything for hope? As he stood at the crossroads of redemption, tension hung in the air. Was love worth fighting for, or had it all been shattered forever? The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the small breakfast table set for three. Lily's cereal sat untouched, the milk slowly soaking the flakes. Greg leaned against the counter, his heart a mix of hope and trepidation. Today felt different. Today, he was determined to take a step, maybe even a leap toward reclaiming his life. Emily appeared, her eyes puffy from a sleepless night. It was a stark contrast to the vibrant woman he had once fallen in love with. An awkward silence filled the space between them. The air was electric, thick with unspoken words. Greg wanted to shout, to express the chaos swirling in his mind, but instead, he took a deep breath. He needed clarity. I was thinking, he started, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside, maybe we should go for a walk later, a family walk. Lily would love to go to the park. Emily's brow furrowed, her lips pressed into a thin line. She nodded quietly, mumbling something about it being a good idea. But Greg felt the weight of her hesitation. It was a harsh reminder of the rift between them, a growing chasm they would both have to face. As the day passed, the anticipation gnawed at him. Could facing his fears help mend their shattered marriage? Or was he just clinging to a ghost, hoping the laughter of their past would fill the void in their hearts? At the park, the vibrant colors of autumn blanketed the ground in a mosaic of orange and gold. Lily dashed ahead, her laughter ringing out like a melody against the backdrop of nature. Each giggle felt like a lifeline, pulling Greg back to the present. "Dad, look at me!" Lily called, her tiny arms outstretched as she twirled in circles. The innocence in her voice provided a brief respite from the heaviness in his chest. Emily watched them, a soft smile creeping onto her face despite the tension weighing her down. For a moment, Greg dared to hope that maybe they could find their way back to these simple joys. "Can we just enjoy today?" he thought, locking eyes with Emily. He saw a flicker of vulnerability in her gaze, something he hadn't seen in days. It felt like a bridge almost forming between them. As they strolled under the crisp autumn skies, Greg knew he had to let his feelings be known. "Emily, I don't want us to be stuck in this pain, in this distrust. I'm still here, and I want to fight for us," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily looked stunned, her posture shifting. "But everything is so complicated," she replied, her words tangled with confusion and regret. "Maybe it's time to untangle it," he urged gently, encouraging her to open up about her fears. "What do we even want now, Emily? Are we ready to talk?" As they settled on a bench, the weight of the conversation loomed like dark clouds above them, more pressing than ever. The clock ticked on, lingering moments filled with questions and raw emotion. Greg knew these words could either be the start of healing or the final nail in the coffin of their relationship. With the sun setting, casting shadows over the park, Greg steeled himself. Would they take a leap together and reclaim what had once been lost? Or would this moment mark the beginning of the end? The silence grew heavy as Emily glanced sideways, biting her lip. I don't know if I can promise you anything right now," she whispered. His heart raced with uncertainty. Would she coast away from him once again, or would something within her stir as it had over the years? As hope battled against despair, Greg felt the dread settle in, knowing that whatever came next would shape their lives forever. "Is it too late for us?" he finally asked, his voice fragile. The twilight enveloped them, leaving everything hanging in the balance, vulnerable and open to a future uncertain. The evening air chilled around them, the fading light casting long shadows over the park. Greg felt the tremor in his hands, a physical reminder of the weight of his question. Emily turned her head slightly, her eyes reflecting a mix of pain and contemplation. She was deep in thought, and it felt like an eternity as they sat in silence, the world around them fading into the background. Finally, Emily broke the stillness. "I don't even know where to start. It's like we've built this wall, you know." Her voice was shaky, laden with the heaviness of years gone by. "Every time I think about us, I remember the hurt. It's hard to see past it." Greg felt a lump rise in his throat. He wanted to reach out, to tell her that he understood, that he'd been there too, grappling with the same hurt. But instead, he listened, mouth dry, heart pounding like a drum. "Maybe we need to break some of these walls down," he suggested, a flicker of determination igniting in him. "We can't move forward if we don't start talking about the hurt, Emily. What if we made a promise? A promise to be honest, no matter how hard it is." Breaking eye contact, she sighed, staring out into the park as if searching for clarity in the fading daylight. The rustling leaves whispered their own secrets, but the weight of her silence stung deeper. "I'm scared, Greg," she finally said, her gaze softening. "What if we can't get past this? What if we're just dragging each other down?" The honesty in her voice tore at him. He understood that fear all too well. It was the ghost of their love, haunting them. "But what if we can? What if there is still something worth saving here?" Lily returned, her arms full of fallen leaves, happily oblivious to the turmoil around her. Look what I found, Dad. Aren't they pretty? She threw the colorful leaves into the air, their laughter bursting forth as they fluttered around them. Greg couldn't help but smile, watching her joy cut through the tense atmosphere. They're beautiful, just like you, he exclaimed, feeling a swell of warmth. He turned to Emily, whose brow had relaxed slightly, a small smile tugging at her lips. See? He said, his voice a little more buoyant. We can feel joy again. We just need to remember how to find it. Emily's expression flickered as she watched their daughter. It's just so hard, Greg. I don't want to pretend I can't pretend anymore. He shifted forward on the bench, fear and hope battling within him. What if we lay everything out on the table? All the hurt, the regrets, the love we still have. Can we face it together? Maybe that's how we start to rebuild. I don't know if I can face everything, she confessed, her voice trembling. What if it breaks us more? I'm so tired of fighting. They exchanged a look, the kind that held years of history. In that unguarded moment, a door swung open in his heart. Then maybe we start with one thing at a time. Just one. The things I wish I could change, she murmured, pain creeping back into her voice. Then let us start there, he urged. Let us talk tonight. Just the two of us. No distractions, just the truth. Emily's eyes welled with unshed tears. And though fear wanted to pull her back, hope held her captive. Okay, she whispered, the word holding both trepidation and a hint of resolve. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Greg felt a new energy spark between them. A tentative promise lingered in the air, not yet solid but palpable enough to ignite some flickering flames of hope. Still, as they gathered Lily to go home, part of him worried. Would the truth bring them closer or push them apart? Can we really face it all? He thought, heart racing again at the uncertainty of what lay ahead. With Lily's laughter guiding them through the park, Greg realized the night was just beginning. The hardest truth was yet to come, and he knew deep down, they weren't fully prepared for it. The night deepened around them, the stars shimmering against a black velvet sky. As they walked home, Lily skipped ahead, her laughter ringing through the quiet evening. It felt out of place, a joyful melody undercutting the heaviness between Greg and Emily. Each step felt weighed down by unspoken words, the anticipation of their upcoming conversation making his head swim with worry. Do you want to talk about it? Greg asked cautiously, trying to lift the weight that hung silently between them. Emily hesitated, biting her lip and looking ahead. Maybe it's better to wait until we're home, in a safe space. Yeah, okay. His heart sank at her reluctance, but he understood. This wasn't going to be easy. They rounded the corner, and the cozy glow of their house came into view. It felt inviting yet foreboding, like the last stop before confronting a storm. Inside, the familiar sights wrapped around him. Lily's crayons scattered on the kitchen table and the faint scent of dinner lingered in the air. But the warmth felt distant. Greg watched as Emily gathered the scattered toys, her movements quick and practiced. A veil of busyness was her shield. He took a breath, stepping closer. Emily, can we sit down? Just us. She nodded, her eyes momentarily flickering with concern, but accepted his invite to the living room. As they settled onto the couch, he could sense the tightening in her shoulders. He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining. The slight squeeze was a signal, both comforting and encouraging. I want to start with honesty, Greg said, his voice steady, yet there was a tremor underlying it, a mix of vulnerability and desire to connect. I never wanted to hurt you, Emily. But I know I did. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, and for a moment, he thought she might pull away. Instead, she leaned in closer. The pain isn't just from you, Greg. There's so much I haven't shared. Please, just tell me, he urged, squeezing her hand again, grounding them both. Taking a shaky breath, she began. It wasn't just the fights or the distance. I felt like I was losing myself for so long. And then there were moments when I felt like I didn't recognize us anymore. Each word tentatively unraveled the walls around them. Greg listened, his heart aching, knowing the pain she was revealing was intertwined with his own. The times he had failed her, the cold nights apart, the silent meals shared. I thought if I buried these feelings, they would go away, she confessed, her voice breaking. But they didn't. They just grew, like weeds strangling everything beautiful. He fought back tears, understanding how deep-rooted her hurt had become. I never thought you'd feel that way. I thought I was the only one hurting. Another pause hung between them, heavier than the first. And then there's the other man I met, Emily whispered, her voice barely above a breath. He made it seem like I was worthy of more. The words hit Greg like a punch. His heart raced, and the lump in his throat swelled. This was the truth he dreaded yet knew must be spoken. What do you mean? Just someone who listened, who saw me. The sharpness of her admission stung. Emotion began to swirl: anger, sadness, confusion. You never told me. Why? I was scared to ruin us even more, she replied, tears now escaping. I didn't want to shatter what little was left. Her honesty laid bare opened a floodgate within him. What had they become? He sensed the urge to retreat but held firm, their hands still locked in a fragile connection. Emily, we both need to be better, he found himself saying, his voice shaking. But I can't do this alone. We have to face these feelings together. Her gaze became more focused, the light of understanding sparking. But what if it's too late? The question hung, heavy and laden with despair. Greg took a deep breath, the air thick with unspoken emotions. He had no easy answers. Just hope intermingled with fear. I don't know. But we have to try for ourselves, for Lily. As the silence settled in, their eyes locked, both raw and exposed, the uncertainty of their future loomed like a storm on the horizon. And just before the stillness could suffocate them, Lily burst into the room, oblivious to the weight hanging in the air. Mommy! Daddy! Can I show you my new drawing? They exchanged a hurried glance, the innocence of their daughter's interruption a small bridge over the chasm of their stark reality. Of course, sweetheart, Greg said, forcing a smile as Lily jumped onto the couch, her excitement infectious yet fragile. Their hearts were still heavy, but in that moment, they understood, their journey was just beginning. Could they find their way back to each other, or would Lily's delight pull them further apart? Lily's drawing was vibrant and chaotic, a reflection of her boundless imagination. Crayon lines crisscrossed the page, an explosion of color that momentarily pulled Greg and Emily from the depths of their conversation. See? It's a rainbow unicorn flying over a castle. She declared, her eyes wide with pride. Greg leaned in, his heart swelling with love for their daughter. It's amazing, Lil. You've got such talent. The smile on her face lit up the room, but as Greg looked at Emily, the truth of their reality loomed just beneath the surface. The joy from their daughter acted like a light flickering in the shadows that threatened to consume them. Can we put it on the fridge? Emily asked, clearly trying to grasp a moment of normalcy amidst the whirlwind of emotions. Absolutely. Lily hopped off the couch, rushing to the kitchen, her little feet making a joyful rhythm against the floor, a stark contrast to the heaviness hanging in the air. Greg turned to Emily, realizing the weight of the world still rested between them. We can still try, you know. Just maybe not tonight, he said softly. Yeah, Emily sighed but didn't meet his eyes. Instead, she traced a finger along the creased couch cushions. I just feel so lost right now. Me too. The honesty in his words echoed, they were together in this confusion. But if we keep talking, maybe we can find a way forward. He wanted to reach for her again, to pull her in close and stitch their shattered pieces back together, but he sensed her hesitation. I don't want this to become a pattern, she admitted, finally looking at him. We've tried before, and I know. He cut in, desperation creeping into his voice. But I think we owe it to ourselves, and Lily, to at least try again. It can't just end like this. Emily shook her head, tears welling up again. What if we just make things worse? What if it's too damaged to fix? Emily, he said, voice firm yet gentle, that's why we have to face this. Ignoring it isn't working. Staying silent isn't healing. Lily returned with a triumphant grin, her drawing clutched in her hands like a trophy. Look. I put it right next to my last one. Isn't it beautiful? It is, sweetheart. Just like you, Emily replied, forcing a smile, but Greg could see the flicker of pain behind her eyes. You both look like you were deep in thought, Lily said, tilting her head like only a child could, curious yet undeterred. It was just grown-up stuff, Greg replied, wishing he could shield her from the storm. Nothing you need to worry about. Okay. Lily bounced on her toes, clearly happy to resume her childlike bliss. Can we have ice cream now? I really want ice cream. Emily chuckled softly, the laughter breaking through a bit of the tension. Sure, ice cream sounds perfect. As they moved toward the kitchen, Greg grabbed Emily's hand again, squeezing it tight. She squeezed back, just a little, as if the simple connection spoke more than words ever could. They walked together, Lily skipping ahead, a ray of light between them. Greg felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could navigate this together. Yet the fear still danced at the edges of his thoughts. What would happen when the ice cream was gone? When the delightful distractions faded? Hey, I love you, you know that, right? He said, catching her gaze again. There was a moment of silence, one that held the weight of everything that had been spoken, and everything that lay unaddressed. I love you too, Greg, Emily replied, but her voice was subdued, as if the words hung tenuous, easy to say yet fragile. The sweetness of their daughter's laughter echoed as they entered the kitchen, but Greg's heart ached with the understanding that they had far more to confront. Would they have the strength to face their past, or would it remain an invisible barrier between them, no matter how much they wanted to bridge the gap? The questions lingered unspoken, reminding Greg that despite the small victories, the journey to healing was just beginning, and each step would demand courage beyond their own. The kitchen filled with a soft hum of anticipation as Emily opened the freezer. The cool air brushed against Greg's face, wrapping him in a brief moment of comfort. Lily's excitement was infectious as she bounced on her toes, eyes wide and eager. Can I have sprinkles? She shouted, half laughing as she declared her ice cream preferences. It was a simple request, yet it tugged at Greg's heartstrings, reminding him of the innocence that should not be overshadowed by the heaviness of adulthood. Of course, sweetheart. You can have as many sprinkles as you want. Emily replied, her voice brightening just a bit. The thought of her daughter's smile motivated her, urging her to hang on to this fragment of normalcy. Greg watched them both, the contrast between their joy and his own internal struggle felt almost surreal. He couldn't help but think about the myriad of moments that brought joy into their lives, moments that had become overshadowed by worries he wished he could erase. As Emily scooped generous portions into bowls, the colors of the ice cream seemed to swirl like the chaos of feelings within him. Each flavor represented something, a memory, a moment they cherished, but too often taken for granted. Vanilla for their wedding day, chocolate for the day Lily was born, and strawberry for lazy summer afternoons in the park. Lily took her bowl, layering sprinkles like a craftsman layering colors into her drawings. We should have a party for this ice cream. Like a unicorn party. Emily chuckled, shaking her head softly. That sounds fun, but for now, let us just enjoy our special treat. Greg forced a smile, though he felt a knot form in his throat. A unicorn party sounds perfect. Let us do it. He saw the light in Lily's eyes, the hope that her parents would play along, even as the shadows loomed closer for him and Emily. After a few bites, Lily paused and looked up at them with a serious expression, her small brow wrinkling slightly as she studied their faces. Why don't you two smile more? Those words hit him straight in the heart. An innocent question layered with the weight of their turmoil. Greg exchanged a glance with Emily, the unspoken fear between them palpable. How could they explain what felt unexplainable? Life gets a little tough sometimes, but we're working on it, Greg responded, keeping his voice light. Your smiles make us happy, though. That's what matters. Lily nodded, accepting that explanation, but Greg could see the flicker of confusion behind her inquisitive eyes. It was a moment pregnant with understanding that extended beyond the usual childhood innocence. They were all trying to navigate the same storm. I just want you both to be happy, she said quietly, her gaze settling between them, sensing the rift they were trying to mask. That's what we want too, Emily said, her voice softer, but full of the weight of truth. As they finished their ice cream, silence fell upon them. The laughter of the last few minutes faded, giving way to the sounds of spoons scraping against bowls and the hum of an old fridge working tirelessly to maintain its chill. It was a precious silence, one that carried the potential for healing, but also for confrontation. Greg felt the urgency building within him, the need to address the issues they had been skirting around. I think we need to talk, he began, voice tight with apprehension, but Lily's excited interruption cut through the heaviness. Can we play a game after this? Her joy was infectious, he felt a tug at his heart, a glimmer of hope enveloping the room once more. But the shadows were still there, lurking behind every blissful smile. Sure, sweet girl. But let us finish our ice cream first, Greg replied, desperate to extend this moment of joy just a bit longer. Emily shifted closer, and he felt the warmth of her presence seep into his skin. They both knew the conversation was coming, and while he hoped for resolution, he feared the truth as well. What if the conversation shattered the fragile moment they had just rebuilt? Would they slip further apart when their daughter was so close? Oblivious to the reality her parents were struggling to navigate? His mind raced, but before he could unravel any further, Lily's laughter struck a perfect chord of innocence. Okay. Let us hurry. She shouted, and with that, Greg took a deep breath, gathering his nerves. Did they dare to confront the shadows tonight, or would they let the game distract them once more? Would the moment pass, or would it be the turning point they needed? The laughter of Lily filled the kitchen, weaving a lightness into the air that Greg desperately clung to. He felt the warmth of hope flickering, just like the subtle glow of the fading day outside. As Emily made one last scoop, he watched their daughter dance on her toes, giddy in a way that seemed to dissolve some of the tension between him and Emily. Okay. Game time. Lily shouted, skipping over towards the living room. Greg could hear her laughter ringing out like a song, and it started to pull at the corners of his heart in a way that reminded him how important it was to keep those moments alive. Just one more game before they faced reality, one more escape from the edges of uncertainty that loomed so closely behind them. Let us play something fun. Emily suggested, glancing at Greg with a playful smile. Yeah. Lily echoed, spinning around. Can we play that one where we have to guess the animals? Greg nodded, feeling a surge of excitement despite the storms brewing in his mind. They all sprawled onto the living room floor, cushions tossed aside, the remnants of ice cream forgotten for now. Lily took the lead, bouncing from animal to animal, her imagination igniting stories about each one. Greg and Emily watched her with fascination, their faces lit by the flickering light of the nearby lamp. In those moments, it felt like they were a family again, united in joy rather than the fragmented conversations they had been having. Okay, I got one. Lily exclaimed, squinting her eyes as if that would help her concentrate. It's big, gray, and has a trunk. I know. An elephant. Greg shouted, his voice echoing with genuine joy. Correct. Daddy wins. Her little hands clapped excitedly. Just then, she turned to Emily, Mommy, your turn. Emily smiled widely, a flicker of relief crossing her features. Alright, mine is fluffy, and it goes meow. Cat. It's a cat. Lily giggled, her laughter bright and contagious, wrapping around both of them like a warm embrace. But as the game went on, Greg felt a subtle weight creeping back into the room. The joy they created together was tangible, yet underneath it all lay unresolved issues simmering just below the surface. The game session was a distraction, a way to dodge the inevitable conversation that still loomed ahead. "I think I'm going to get some cookies," Emily announced with a little too much cheer. "Yay!" Lily cheered again, but Greg could see the flicker of tension in Emily's smile as she stood up. It was that same smile that had been stitched together with threads of anxiety. "Want help?" Greg asked, pushing himself off the floor. "Anything to keep the mood light for a little while longer." No, I got it." Emily waved him off, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She hurried to the kitchen, and as the clinking of cookie sheets began, silence rushed back in, heavier than before. Greg glanced at Lily, who looked up at him with an uncertain expression. "Daddy, why is Mommy trying so hard to be happy if she is not?" The innocence of her question caught him off guard. He opened his mouth to answer, but instead, it felt like all the words got tangled up in his throat. Lily was too perceptive for her age. How was he supposed to explain this mess to her? "I think she loves you very much, and she wants everything to feel special," he finally said, though he could hear the uncertainty in his own voice. "Can't we just make everything happy again?" she asked, her little brow furrowing. "Yeah, we're working on it," he said, even as doubt gnawed at him. The atmosphere grew thick with unspoken words and fears, the joyous laughter from just moments ago almost feeling like a distant memory. In that moment, Greg realized that they couldn't continue dodging the deeper issues that tested their bond. Emily returned with a plate of cookies, her smile bright but fragile. Greg's heart sank again as he realized a single moment of candor was just waiting to break the surface, where honesty hung like a raft in a storm. "Ready for dessert?" she asked, trying her best to keep the mood light. "Yeah," Lily exclaimed, her cheer pushing back the darkness for now. But Greg's mind raced with what was left unsaid. Would they find the clarity they needed? Would the evening take a turn they were dreading, or would they really find a way to pull together? As they sat there munching on cookies, the question lingered in his mind. When would they finally face the truth? Lily's laughter bubbled up again as she took a huge bite of her cookie, leaving a trail of crumbs across her cheeks. "Yum! These are the best!" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with delight. Greg chuckled softly, but the tightness in his chest only grew stronger. Watching his daughter revel in the simple pleasure of cookies made him wish for more joyful moments. For her, Emily watched them both, her eyes darting between Greg and Lily. A storm brewed behind her smile. It wasn't he knew, they were all too aware of the tension that simmered beneath the surface, but tonight felt crucial. The cookie-filled air was heavy with unsaid words. "Let us play another game," Lily suggested, her energy relentless. She turned to Emily and raised her eyebrows in excitement. "How about charades?" Emily hesitated, glancing at Greg, then back at their daughter. "Okay, honey. Sounds fun," she replied, though her voice carried a hint of exhaustion. Greg could sense her reluctance. She was fighting something inside, something they all were, yet she leaned into the distraction to keep the night from slipping into darkness. Lily leapt up. "I'll go first." She jumped into the living room, placing her tiny hands on her hips. "Watch me. I'm an animal." "Oh. What do we see?" Greg teased, playing along. "A fierce lion?" "No. I'm a bunny," she said, furiously hopping around the room, giggling uncontrollably. Her laughter enveloped them like a summer breeze. Emily finally surrendered, her laughter joining Lily's. But the moment of joy felt fleeting. Within him, Greg felt a swell of conflicting emotions. He longed to hold on to this happiness, but the pressure was building. He looked at Emily, gratefully yet painfully aware of how she was trying so hard to keep it all together. After a few rounds of charades, their daughter flopped back onto the floor, panting with glee. That was the best. Can we do it again? Of course, but let us take a break, Greg suggested gently. He leaned back against the couch and rubbed his temples. It was tough to juggle happiness and anxiety. Daddy? Lily asked, her voice suddenly serious. Do you think we have enough fun sometimes? Her question sliced through the air. Greg lifted his head, meeting her innocent gaze. We always have fun, sweetheart. But we also have to deal with things, too. Like what? Lily tilted her head, her curiosity unbridled. Emily looked worried but stayed silent, watching intently. Greg hesitated. He could feel the weight of Emily's gaze on him. Like when people don't agree, he started, searching for words that wouldn't create fear. Like how sometimes mommy and daddy argue. Why do you argue? Lily asked, her little brow furrowing, sensing the gravity behind the subject. Emily shifted uncomfortably, her hands clenching. Sometimes grown-ups have different opinions. Lily, ever perceptive, simply nodded, still processing. But we can fix it, right? Yeah, we can fix it, Emily whispered, but Greg could hear the crack in her voice. He knew the words weren't a promise, but an affirmation of their shared struggle. Just like the game. Lily exclaimed, attempting to lighten the mood. If we just try again. Greg exchanged a look with Emily across the room, their eyes locking for a moment too long. An understanding passed between them, a silent confirmation of their shared battle. Greg wanted to believe Lily was right. But how many games could they play before they faced what lay beneath? The gravity of their unspoken truths lingered, a heavy curtain waiting to be lifted, and it seemed their daughter might be their only hope. Just then, Greg's phone buzzed from the table, breaking the tension. He glanced at it, a frown creeping onto his face. It was a message from an unknown number, the first of its kind he had received in months. Who is that? Emily asked, tracking his expression. The sound of their daughter's giggles faded into the background as something else took hold of the moment. I don't know, he said slowly, his heart racing. Well, open it. Lily urged, bouncing on her knees. He hesitated, caught between lightness and the looming darkness. Maybe this was the shift they needed to face their reality. But what could it mean? As he pressed the screen to see who had reached out, an uneasy anticipation filled the room. What awaited him could change everything. Greg's fingers hovered over the screen, uncertainty churning within him. He let a deep breath escape, struggling to steady the pulse racing at his temples. With a swipe, the message unfolded. Greg, I know about Emily. His heart dropped. He could barely catch the rest as the trio of words echoed in his mind. His mouth went dry, a bitter taste replacing the sweetness of the earlier laughter. The colors dimmed in the room, casting shadows where warmth used to reside. What's wrong, Daddy? Lily's innocent voice cut through the thickening fog. She had noticed the change in his demeanor, the way his hands trembled slightly as he scrolled. Greg managed a small smile, though it felt like a thin veil over a crumbling facade. Just a work thing, he lied, forcing his voice to sound casual, but it came out strained. Emily caught his eye, her worry deepening, and for a moment, they both understood. She tilted her head ever so slightly, an unquenchable curiosity sparking behind her gaze. The air crackled with unsaid words again, and Greg felt all the buried conversations rushing to the surface. What does it say? Emily asked, her tone more urgent, almost desperate to make sense of his reaction. But the weight of the disclosure felt heavier than anything he had faced before. It was as if every charade, every joyful moment shared, was clinging to a fragile thread. He could hardly breathe. It's okay, he replied, though he felt anything but. He couldn't let their daughter sense the crack in his composure. After an excruciating pause, he steadied himself, tilting the phone so Emily could see the screen. The blood seemed to drain from her face as she read, her eyes widening in disbelief. It was clear this wasn't a matter they could easily brush away. Greg, we need to talk, she finally said, her voice low and shaky. Lily, oblivious to the depth of the words shared between her parents, began to fidget. "Can I go play in my room?" she offered, sensing the rising tide of tension. "Yeah, sweetheart, go ahead. We'll be right here," Greg managed, his heart aching as she bounded away, leaving an echo of innocence behind. Once they were alone, the gravity of the moment settled between them. "What do you mean, you know about me?" He repeated the words in his mind, the knot tightening. Emily sank onto the couch, her hands gripping her knees. "I thought we were past," she paused, gathering her thoughts. "How did they find out? Who is this person?" "I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone," he shot back, frustration spilling from him. "This is insane." "Insane?" Emily echoed, her voice quivering. "You think this is just insane?" He could feel the whole weight of the moment. The uncertainty, the fear of what this could mean for them, thrummed between them, thick and unresolved. "I didn't want you to find out this way," he said, softening, the edge of anger dissipating in his regret. "We can't keep ignoring everything," she said finally, a tear slipping down her cheek. "It's eating us alive." He wanted to reach out, to reassure her that they could fix this, just like they'd told Lily. But the hard truth loomed larger than any game. They needed to face it. They'd have to confront everything they'd been running from for so long. That a heavy silence fell, punctuated only by the ticking clock. Then Greg's phone buzzed again, breaking the stillness. "See who it is," Emily urged, her voice barely above a whisper. He reluctantly picked it up, dread pooling in his stomach when he saw the name staring back. It wasn't just an unknown number anymore. It was the name of an old friend. One who once held a significant place in his life, and now. What would that friend reveal that could change everything? Greg stared at the screen, heart pounding. Memories rushed forward, long nights of laughter, shared secrets, and now, perhaps betrayal. "It's Jake," he whispered, the name tasting bitter on his lips. Emily's eyes widened, confusion mixing with dread. "Jake? The one from the car dealership?" "Yeah. He knows everything." The weight of those words hung heavy in the room. Greg felt his knees buckle slightly as he sank back down on the couch beside Emily. The fabric felt rough, grounding him, while fear washed over him. "Why would he reach out to you?" she stuttered. "What does he want?" "I don't know." He shot back, frustration bubbling under his skin. His mind raced. "But if he thinks he has something to say, it's not good." Emily looked away, her fingers trembling as they dug into the fabric of the couch. "What does this mean for us?" she asked softly. The question pierced his heart deeper than any betrayal. The silence threatened to swallow them whole. Here they were, their home feeling more foreign by the minute, the warmth of their child's laughter replaced by a cold reality creeping in. "We've tried to ignore the elephant in the room, but it looks like it's about to stomp us flat," Greg said finally, his voice breaking. Through her tears, Emily nodded slowly, as if surrendering to a hard truth. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "Facing it means we either lay everything out in the open or let this destroy us," he replied, steeling his resolve. "I can't keep trying to wrap us in happiness when reality is just waiting to crash in." A flash of determination sparked across her face. "So, we take it on together then?" He grasped her hand, clinging tightly. "Together." Emily inhaled shakily, determination flickering within her gaze. "I'm scared, Greg." It was a confession only fragile hearts make. Each of them bore scars that had healed unevenly, telling a story of pain and sorrow. But somewhere deep in those scars flowed veins of hope. "Me too, but maybe we could find something beautiful if we face our truth," he said, summoning warmth into his voice. "We can't let fear write our story. We decide how we move forward, no one else." Emily's tears glistened like a promise for change. "Okay. We'll talk. Whatever it takes." With each exchange, he could finally feel the weight, cracking ever so slightly, like ice under pressure. The hum of the family clock echoed. Greg's heart raced, every tick was a reminder of their choices. Lily needs us to be whole. We need to do this for her, for us. Can we do it tonight? Emily's voice trembled, a blend of trepidation and resolve. Once we get this out, we can start fresh. Greg nodded, their eyes locking with a fierce determination. With an urgency surging in his chest, he rose to grab his phone, each footstep echoing towards their truth. Should we call him? Emily asked, her voice small. What if he holds more secrets? No waiting, he replied, taking a deep breath, dialing Jake's number despite the churn in his stomach. As it rang, every echo felt like a challenge. Hey, Greg. Long time, Jake said when he answered. His tone was casual, but Greg could sense something darker hiding just beneath. Tell me everything you know about Emily, he demanded, his heart racing, emotions colliding like fireworks in the night sky. The pause was heavy, filled with unsaid truths and underlying implications. Emily's breath hitched as they both sensed the uncertainty hanging in the air. Would this be the moment that shattered them or the start of their healing? As Jake began to speak, Greg felt the shadows lift, replaced with a sense of somewhat shaky clarity. It was time to confront their past. Their fears that had gripped them for so long were about to be exposed, and in that confrontation they would forge their path forward together. Greg looked at Emily, determination etched on both their faces, and for the first time that evening, hope blossomed like flowers breaking through the barren ground. Maybe, just maybe, the brightest tomorrows come from the darkest today. As if reading his thoughts, Emily squeezed his hand tighter. For our family, she whispered, and in that moment, the depths of love dipped just a little deeper. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation.